Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you a functional mangrove tree farm. So this whole large thing around me, really gotten quite huge. But this is caused by the difficulty of actually farming this type of tree. So a couple snapshots ago, mangrove trees were added, and with this farm we can automatically farm the new mangrove logs and also some of the root blocks that would grow at the bottom. But I actually want to start with the video by explaining how those mangrove trees grow and why it's so difficult to actually make a farm out of this. Alright, so let's have a look at those mangrove trees first. So in order to make a farm, we first need to know how those trees grow. And I made a test setup here with command blocks that would grow trees over and over again. So we can actually just start this. Just gonna start the little clock here. So this would just get rid of the tree, clone it over here, and then grow a new one. And of course, with carpet mod, you can do a tick warp to do this a lot faster. Alright, so by doing this over and over again, I got some good information how those trees would grow. So one thing they need to know about those trees is the amount of dirt you have here in a cross shape would also determine the shape of the tree. So the more dirt you have, the larger the tree can grow. So I tested this over and over again, with different amounts of dirt to the side. So actually started by having 5 dirt sticking out to the side, which was the result of, no, this was 6 white dirt. I think I actually started with 6 white dirt. So this was the result of having a 6 white dirt strip. So we got up to 6 of the root blocks here, and above the logs can grow out 5 white from the center. So you can also see they would grow in a cross shape, and the maximum height, which is very rare, would be 25 blocks high. We can also have a log up here. Okay, then I did the same test again with a 7 white cross shape dirt. So it's actually possible that a 7th log would generate this far out. Not logs, actually a root block. I also tried this then with 8 logs, but we didn't get an additional one. So 7 is the maximum of dirt or size of the tree. Then also went a bit smaller, so this was the 5 white. Then also the roots would only grow 5 white. Then tried it with 4. Interesting that the logs at the top can still go out 5 white. Next was 3. 2. Now here you can already see the tree doesn't grow that well, so I did literally hundreds of trees or even thousands. It was usually a 5-hour test I did. And if you look at only the 1 white shape, you can see this really didn't affect the tree growth. The logs would only grow at 3 white, and at the bottom we only get 3 high root blocks. Then one of the major factors that actually makes it hard to grow those trees, or if you want to make a farm out of it, is the fact that those bee nest blocks can also generate on the side. And I also wanted to test to see where they would generate. So I cloned everything over and cloned the beehives over to this position. So this would be the center block where the propagule is placed, and the beehives, so the nests would generate around the center. And similar to birch or oak trees, they wouldn't generate on the north side. And the reason is, it's probably something Mojang did intentionally, the bee nest blocks would always face south. So if you would have logs here and then the nest would face this way, the bees would get stuck. So I guess Mojang intentionally did that to prevent the bees getting stuck. So this is kind of good. You don't need to worry about those blocks on the north side. But the main problem with those blocks is that they're not movable. So if you want to somehow make some kind of farm where the logs get pushed somewhere, those blocks would be in the way. And that's a huge issue. It's also noteworthy that if you try to grow the minimum size tree, so if only 1 dirt sticking out the center, you would need a lot of bone meal. And the reason is only the smallest type of tree can grow. All the other options, so of larger trees that are randomly selected, wouldn't grow. So it's not uncommon that you would waste a stack or 2 until a tree would finally grow. As you can see, with a tick warp, literally hundreds of bone meal would be wasted until you finally get one. But this minimum size tree is actually really interesting. So the first thing is that the beehives wouldn't generate if you have a minimum size tree. And I think the reason is you get the root blocks here generating on the side, which prevents the hives from generating. So this is kind of useful, but obviously it has huge downsides. So it would be very slow, very wasteful. Yeah, here we got another tree. As you can see, those small trees, there's not much to it. But technically this would be the simplest type of tree farm, because you wouldn't need to deal with those beehives. And another thing that's actually quite interesting is roots would grow here all the way down to the bottom. So this was very strange. I was very surprised by this. And I also wondered if this would also happen if you go up to sky limit, if this would if they would also grow all the way down to the bottom. So almost 400 blocks higher, I tried this, but unfortunately it didn't happen that the roots would generate all the way down. Just interesting side note, I don't think it would be very useful. I also tried a couple other things, so having a pillar of blocks here next to the propagule, 2 blocks over, and this actually prevented the tree growth entirely, so it was quite interesting. Then I had a layer of blocks up here, which didn't do much to stop the growth of the tree. It's also kind of interesting, but unfortunately I don't think this would be too useful. If you go out a bit further with the pillar of blocks, the tree can grow, but not up to the full size. That was quite interesting. And I've done a couple more tests. But what I really wanted to do is somehow to prevent those beehives from generating. And I actually found a way to do this. So the first thing you need to know is that you can't just prevent the hives from generating by not having flowers nearby. So this works differently from oak and birch trees. So there's a small chance if you grow an oak or birch sapling into a tree that a beehive would, I was actually super lucky, I even got one, that a beehive would generate on the side. Because we had a flower within this 5x5 box around the sapling. So if we wouldn't have a flower there, you would never get a beehive if you just grow a birch tree or an oak tree. Alright, so this is not similar to the propagules. There you would always have a chance that a beehive would generate. So you can prevent those beehives from generating by having mangrove blocks in the positions where those hives would generate. As you can see here, the tree can still grow normally, but because all of those spots were blocked, no beehive could generate. This would also work with water, by the way. Another way to make a farm would be an underwater propagule farm. You can also grow them underwater. And this way you wouldn't get any vines, and also no beehives. But now I had to make the decision. What type of farm should I go for? What I haven't mentioned so far yet would be actually the easiest type of farm. You could also have TNT tubers all around the tree and just blow it up from bottom to top. I would assume you have TNT on all 4 sides. That you could just drop them in a way that the dirt doesn't get blown up. Might be a bit tricky. And blow up all the blocks, including the potential beehive blocks, and probably make the simplest farm this way. But I decided against it because it's kind of lame and kind of depends on TNT tubing, so you could just waste a lot of TNT. So yeah, I had to make a decision what I'm gonna try for. Obviously, there's still the option to go for the simplest farm. We only had to grow this minimum size tree. Then another option would have been an underwater tree farm, which would also have been interesting. But in the end, I decided to go for the farm where we just have blocks that would prevent the beehives from generating. And this is the final functional farm. Alright, so let's check out the farm. Tree has already grown. I'm just gonna launch everything. Although the farm is quite slow, we'll probably have issues keeping up explaining everything. Okay, so the first thing happens is we push up the logs here, so the flying machine can reach without sticking to the dirt. Okay, so then we push over all the logs. The first flying machine, we just drive it through. Also, some of those logs here on the side, which will be pushed over next with this piston contraption here. And then they will be merged with the other additional logs we're getting. Okay, so we couldn't just blow them up here directly on site. Because then there would be a chance that we would blow up those blocks that need to get pushed back to prevent the next beehive from generating. But sometimes it can happen if we get actually a lot of root blocks in a row. So this is actually the shape that I cloned over. So it could look like this, so we get like 8 root blocks in a row. That's why we also drop some TNT here. Get rid of those blocks now. Okay, see what happens. It's really hard to keep up even. Then with the next things that happens, we push those 2 blocks back that prevent the beehive from generating. We also launch this flying machine again, so everything's stopped in the middle. But of course, the blocks are not in position yet, so this flying machine here would pull them back. Alright, so those are in position. But also already happened is another flying machine was pushing over the remaining logs. And now those are getting pushed back. Okay, now also launch this flying machine again. Now everything is in place again. I just used the command block to place a new propagule, and the bone meal dispenser would be turned on soon. So instead of obviously using the command block to place the propagule, a player would just stand here with a propagule in hand, maybe would be just raised, place it real quick, and then lower it again so you couldn't place another one at the wrong time. Okay, then a new tree has grown, and the whole cycle could start again. So I disconnected here the redstone dust, so we can do one batch after the other. So yeah, it's getting launched again. There's a couple things that were quite tricky making this farm. Obviously, need to make sure that no blocks would stick to the whole flying machine structure, so the sticky blocks. It was also quite tricky to stop the flying machines at the right time. So for example here we extend some redstone blocks to do so. Then another huge issue was the vines on the side can grow. And they could grow in front of some observers. So I always had to make sure that the observers are covered, or it would be really unlikely that a vine would grow several times in a row to actually reach one of those observers that isn't covered. So it would be 1 in a quadrillion chance that it actually happens, so quite unlikely. But yeah, the vine growing could be quite annoying. It updates stuff at the wrong moment. Alright, so where are we? Okay, at the moment this flying machine got launched over. That will then push the logs back. And I was hoping if we could actually see it, that we have a lot of leftover blocks on a tree. So I counted the logs we're getting from this. Sometimes you can get up to 60 items from one tree. Okay, then we have several of those collection systems at the bottom where the logs and blocks are collected. And yeah, almost done again with another cycle. Alright. So I'm just gonna place 2 more of the root blocks here on the side so you can see this. Yeah. Launch all the flying machines again. By the way, we even get some propagules back sometimes. Sometimes they fully generate. Although it's quite easy to make a propagule farm, you could even get some back. Okay. And now we got the situation that we have some leftover blocks here on the side, which will then be blown up by the TNT. And again, it's not possible really to, or might be possible, quite tricky, to blow them up directly here inside without the additional flying machine pushing them over. Because if you just lose a single of those blocks here, yeah, then the beehives could generate again. Okay, as you can see here, additional blocks will be blown up here. 2 TNT. Yeah, get dropped down different heights is enough. Alright, so here we just drop down 16 TNT. Takes care of the other blocks. Alright, so we have a functional mangrove tree farm. Of course, it was important to me to just make a functional farm first in the snapshots. So of course, this farm is not optimized yet. This is like the first working type of the farm. And of course, there's a lot of other things that can be tried. Like, I'm pretty sure it's possible just to blow up the tree directly on site, although it's not as TNT efficient as doing it this way. Then of course this can be optimized. At the moment it takes about 90 seconds to grow a tree and harvest it. And this way we're getting about 375 logs per hour and about 750 of those root blocks per hour. Which obviously is not a lot. Then yeah, some of the flying machine timings can be optimized to shave off a couple seconds. And yeah, there's definitely potential to make it faster. One way to make a faster farm in general without really optimizing something would also be to just move the player around. Instead of just standing 90 seconds here and waiting for the tree to be harvested, you could also move to a second version or multiple version of this farm and place propagules there to get more logs per hour by just cloning the farm a couple times would be a way to make it faster, but yeah, we have to see. We're still in the snapshots, and I still hope this whole effort of dealing with the beehives won't be necessary. I really think it should, the beehive should only generate just actually flower nearby. Alright, so I think making a mangrove tree farm was definitely quite a challenge. I would say mangrove tree farms are even harder than dark oak tree farms to make, just because the logs can generate in so many different positions, and that issue with the beehives definitely doesn't make it easier. Those trees were definitely not made with farming in mind. I really did enjoy this challenge though. I spent roughly 30 hours on making this farm, which would also explain the lack of videos lately. Yeah, I should really focus on more easy to make clickbait content. Never mind. So this is a working mangrove tree farm. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks guys for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.